Oh, hello there. Welcome back to Shooting the Shit with me, Ollie.
And I'm Rich.
Let's just jump into some shit. Let's get on it.
Let's do this.
So, what's caught your eye this week, man?
Diversity. Not the dance group. Diversity in the grand schemes of, society. Because I'm a deep thinker in that way.
Indeed.
I like to sit there and just look up in the stars and
think about diversity.
There's
quite
a
a
bit
number
bad,
of different
isn't it? And the stars
types.
though, because they're all the same colour.
Well, they're not though. I mean, it just looks like that, I think, here.
Yeah.
Without the aid of a telescope, just to the naked eye.
Sweet. Right.
Anyway, yeah, what was your story?
So there's this new TV program. Well, it's not even new. It's a new series of
a reboot.
Yeah, HBO series with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
It's sort of they're trying to find individuals to direct a movie.
A movie they've scripted.
And it's sort of that reality series following, the actual process behind making the film.
Mm-hmm.
And getting the actual right person to do the job and whatnot. But anyway, so there's.
What is it? Is it sort of like I don't know, Hell's Kitchen or whatever, where like 10 directors enter and only one will leave with the contract? Yeah.
I think it's like that.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so basically, really, at the moment, a renowned director, Effie Brown, who's been
producer.
Producer, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
She doesn't direct herself, as far as I'm aware.
Oh, sweet. Okay, so a producer.
Mm-hmm.
She's produced a film, Dear White People, which mixed reviews. But I'm not here to plug their show or movie.
I've not seen it.
Yeah.
She also did But I'm a Cheerleader, I believe.
Really?
Back in the 90s.
Sweet.
About sort of a lesbian in one of these gay therapy camps.
Ooh.
Not seen that either.
Cool.
Also mixed reviews from what I hear.
Sweet. So yeah, she basically in the film, there's a black prostitute.
Uh-huh.
Who is beaten up by her white pimp.
Uh-huh.
And she raised the concern, basically regarding the fact that we should probably think about who's the director, because of how,
because of that scene.
Because of that scene and how it might be portrayed. Yeah. I've got mixed feelings towards what she said. Well, because as a director, surely you should be able to,
yeah, it comes back to like we spoke about last time with Idris Elba.
Yeah.
And Anthony
Horowitz. Yeah.
His comments about how he thinks he's too street,
Mm-hmm.
and as many people other than us and before us pointed out,
yeah,
he's an actor.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way, a director, a professional filmmaker, they're trying to, give the film direction.
Mm-hmm.
You'd expect a good director to be able to, masterfully craft a story.
Yeah.
To be able to empathise with the characters or understand the characters
Mm-hmm.
and push them in the direction that they need to be going.
Yeah.
So I don't think you need to be a black director to direct that scene.
Yeah. It's fair. It's a good point. But on the other flip side of the coin, some directors don't have that prowess, do they? Whereas if you had someone who was of that ethnic origin,
well,
they could put themselves in that place and think how a viewer of the same ethnic, background.
But why can't someone who...
I'm not saying they can't, but I'm saying that's like the flip side. Like you can see, that maybe they'll have that level of sensitivity that will get it well received.
We're talking about one brief scene, presumably a few seconds long, if it's just, a slap.
Probably.
I don't know, is she a big character? Because I don't know.
I think that she's the main... I'm not aware of it, but I think she's the main character in it.
Okay.
The black prostitute.
Well, I mean, for example, would a black male director be sufficiently able to empathise with, a black lady prostitute character?
Yeah.
Any more than, say, a white woman?
Good question.
I don't know. Like I said, professional filmmakers are, they're professional filmmakers. They get there for a reason.
Yeah.
Ideally, not always the case. You know.
Well, fair. Well, basically, the outrage that's sort of come from this comment, this discussion, was that Matt Damon halted Effie Brown while she was saying this and said, basically that, you know, diversity shouldn't be in the casting, but you know,
it should be in the casting in front of the camera, not
rather than at the back. Which has obviously caused some outrage, and basically one of the issues that people have had with it is sort of whitemanship or
white-splaining.
And Damon splaining.
Well, I can sort of see where they're coming from. I think specifically what he said there is slightly misguided. But then I can sort of see where he's coming from as well, because at the same time, sort of, how many people know who the director or the producer of a film is?
You don't
really. Do people know necessarily what they look like?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless you're particularly into film and you follow the news, and maybe, you know, many of the average cinema-going public aren't going to know or care necessarily.
So I totally agree with that.
And also, if the outcome of the art form is the story, then you're looking to represent racial diversity in the story, then surely the cast is the most key point at the end of the day, because that's what results in that's what the audience consumes, basically.
I kind of think with these all issues is that we need to stop thinking about race in general, because that's what all these issues that are nonsensical to me, and have, you know, there's no point in having these kind of discussions, because I feel like if you keep bringing it up, then you're you know, constantly
just dragging it out, keeping it going.
We shouldn't forget that, you know, there's issues here and whatnot, but in the same sense, like, keep hashing it out and talking about it, and, you know, overreacting to a white man having a conversation with a black woman who's the peer in terms of this project. There's no hierarchy with him being like, oh, I'm a white man, I'm going to tell you what to do, you're this like black producer.
She's been brought in because she's a successful producer. I mean, I've not seen anything she's done. I did have a look at her IMDb earlier. And there was a whole shitload of shows she's produced which are just named after random women's names.
Oh wow.
I've not seen any of them.
I'm going to watch Dear White People tonight. And see what it's saying.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but the point I was trying to the point I was trying to make is that, you know, there's always this outcry from people who are sitting behind a keyboard complaining about something that someone said, but you need to look at it on a deeper level. Like, he had a point. Like, I know there's this whole,
it might have been inarticulately expressed,
but
again, because you said they're peers, so they were having a conversation, and we need to remember that the footage would have been edited. So
he did say that.
But surely, I mean, imagine there was probably more to the conversation that got showed. On the show. Shown on the show.
Definitely. There's that whole. I was reading another article where basically they were saying the myth of meritocracy is one of the fundamental and erroneous ideals of white supremacy. It's quite a
bit of a.
I gave up reading it because it seemed very biased towards defaming Matt Damon's character.
Well, I mean, that's, you know, quite an accusation to essentially level at someone that they're harbouring white supremacist thoughts. Based on a piece of edited footage of two people having a conversation about filmmaking.
It's ridiculous. I think it's absolutely absurd. But there's also other articles where, no, Matt Damon came from a point of, you know, actually expressing a actual, you know, a valid point. Whereas another article that was written by, I don't have them written down here.
Oh, note failure.
Oh, there it is. Found it. Basically, it's a movie website called Deadline, and their co-editor Nelly Andreeva wrote an article about the surge of diversity on television and whether it was sustainable.
Sustainable how? What? It was they're gonna eventually put every black person in America in film.
you know, there'll just be no white
there
folks.
won't be any more.
Yeah.
No more black people. They're all in Hollywood.
But basically, she titled the actual article saying "The Year of Ethnic Castings: About Time or Too Much of a Good Thing." This caused a lot of outrage from a lot of people as well, because they're saying, why do you need to write an article like this? Like, some of the stuff she said in here, I sort of did find a bit unnecessary. Like, she was saying about how grossly undeserved African American actors are being compensated, but then she said the growth in ethnic roles may have reached its peak. But I don't understand why she's brought this.
I don't know. You'd expect the diversity of a culture to be probably reflected in its media to some degree. So I guess the diversity will sort of peak around where it's sort of realistic and what you'd expect to see.
Yeah. But I think one of the main images I was on there. You
have to remember that Hollywood, even though it's got a massive far reach, it is the entertainment industry of the USA.
Yeah.
So it does hire, its main audience is the American audience. So they're going to present, and a lot of it's going to be about marketing it to the people that go to the cinema in that country. So they're going to present stories that reflect what
was happening
their
there.
Target audience's lives.
Yeah. So I did find one interesting statistic about diversity, actually. So basically a study by USC's Annenberg School of Communication and Journalism basically found that films led by black directors were more likely to have diverse casts, but only 6.5% of 2013's top 100 grossing films had such directors. So Effie did have a point in what she was saying, I feel.
That there isn't enough racial diversity.
Yeah, in general.
But again, I mean, I don't know sort of who all of this percentage of black directors is, and I don't know what films they were making.
Yeah.
I don't know, I mean, what are you supposed to take from that necessarily?
Maybe that,
I think it's probably more an issue of social mobility than it is necessarily about race.
Good point.
I mean, particularly in the USA, where you've got many people from particularly the black community are in a lower socioeconomic class.
Yeah.
The opportunities for mobility are less. They can't get necessarily to film school, or they don't have the financial backing to be able to sort of risk going out to Hollywood for a few months and try and get scripts green lighted.
That's a fair point.
Greenlit. So I mean, that's going to be reflected in it, and that's a bigger issue.
But then you think that as being aware of this problem, people should make an active effort to help these individuals get into the opportunity, the situation where they can actually do these things,
where they have mobility. Well, but that's a lot bigger than, say, the film industry. I mean, you need to do a lot of things to sort of improve these people's lives in a lot more sort of basic but important ways. Not just necessarily, I don't know, going to these poor communities and handing out a bunch of cameras or something.
But you could
need to actually sort of, I don't know, invest in the schools in those areas.
But you can have little workshops and stuff. That's not stopping you from doing outreach programs to help individuals, get a taste for it. They'll gain the skills they need. Then they'll, get to, where Effie Brown's is. Fair enough, she's a producer, not a director, but
a filmmaker of some description.
Someone you need one foot, in the door, wedging it open for you to, much, squeeze yourself in.
Helps a great deal. But
so in response to the whole outcry, Matt Damon came out with basically saying that how it's poorly edited, and basically then came
an apology.
And then said basically how he, he's glad that he's provided,
the
sort
opportunity for discussion.
which, you know, one of the women from Charmed came out and said, you know,
okay.
Rose McGowan, she was hot in her day until she like did a load of cosmetic surgery and then she fucked up her face. But anyway, basically she was saying about, you know, awareness. You know, like she said basically how like the white men of Hollywood need to get, you know, off their asses. Like awareness isn't enough in these situations.
Right.
But then do you feel it's a responsibility of these white actors in America or anywhere to open the doors for black people or other minorities?
You know, it goes back to sort of actually helping the communities in really meaningful ways, sort of economically, sort of getting, you know, a situation where people can start businesses in these communities where they can afford homes.
Yeah.
You know, getting healthcare and shit to these people.
There's a big complex issue.
I think it's a lot more complex than sort of, I mean, what can Matt Damon do at the end of the day?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what it boils down to is people want him to chuck money at it.
Yeah.
Because that's what he can do. I mean, he's not
poor.
Well, no, I mean, he's not got political power.
Yeah.
He can't, you know, as meaningfully, you know, particularly meaningfully change these people's lives and help their situation.
Yeah.
A position where maybe they can take the opportunity. Because it's a risk going into sort of filmmaking and stuff. Plenty of people want to do it, but not many
actually have the skill.
Actually going to have, you know, not just the skill, but the luck.
Yeah.
And just being at the right place at the right time to get the right project and sort of get your name out there and get going.
Yeah. Fair enough. He hasn't got the power to do anything.
Responsibility either.
But do you not feel that big companies such as Twitter or Amazon should like be more diverse in their, you know, recruitment and?
Well, when you say diverse, what do you mean? Because do you just mean racially diverse?
Well, and
do you just mean for the sake of having?
No, I don't think you should just walk along the street and say, "Oh, there's a black man over there, there's a black man over there." Like, let's take them into our business, and I'm sure they'll be alright. Because I don't have that problem. I feel like if I am qualified for the job, to an extent, I'll get it. But also, I do believe
to an extent you'll get it. You won't necessarily get all of it, but they might have you in on.
The reason I say that is when I was applying for like PhDs and stuff.
Yeah.
There was always questions regarding your ethnic background, and I always used to I would always fill that out. I never got any opportunities when the last and then I realized I'll take that off, and I got loads of responses back. It does play a bearing into stuff. Fair enough, I may not be qualified, like
I was just gonna say,
like some people might not have wanted me. But this isn't a common, like this isn't just one isolated case. Like another person that I know is of an ethnic minority background. He had the same experience.
And you think it was possibly because you're
potentially
your race, not because maybe those particular courses you were going for were, you know, highly competitive, and maybe people with perhaps more lab experience were going for them?
That could have been. But
it's hard to say,
I just see the correlation with me taking off my
your race details and suddenly getting offers.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, that's totally changed my mind then. Yeah.
Really? Well, shit, I'm glad I've made a change, bruh. No, Michael Jackson's words. Time to make a change and all that.
But no, like you were talking about Twitter.
Yeah.
And apparently there's
0% black females in Twitter. And then when you add black males into the equation in terms of diversity, then it actually equates to 2% of the workforce in Twitter are black.
But what does that mean? Why is that necessarily a bad thing if the people there are all qualified?
Oh, so people who complain, and I don't really.
I mean,
have a problem. But in a sense, I do have a problem. Actually, I'll take that back.
Okay.
With a massive company like that,
right?
Think about you said the socioeconomic problems and whatnot. Should we not be opening more doors? You know what we're doing here is we're giving these scholarships to black people and whatnot, but that's where it ends. Like,
well, no, not necessarily.
Twitter, a massive company. I'm sure there's a lot of black people that are into the tech. You know, have gone into university and studied technology and
you're talking
stuff.
about specifically sort of no black women.
Yeah.
I mean, dare I say it, the tech industry is, you know, and engineering are quite often dominated by males. It is predominantly men.
Yeah.
Sort of on these courses at the universities and colleges.
Yeah. Fair point.
I don't know. For example, let's say they hired suddenly 5% black women.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What does that do? What is the combination of melanin and 2 X chromosomes?
You're opening up the doors to people who wouldn't have normally got that job. Think about it this way. We have this Athena Swan thing here, you know, we're giving more opportunities to women. What does that mean? You know? Why should they have more opportunities in science if they're not qualified to get that position?
I think they also campaign for better sort of like maternity leave rights and stuff, because that is a big issue.
Shouldn't they be campaigning for better, you know, paternity, you know, issues? Like, surely men should get like time off similar to women. You know, fair enough, you've had to push it down, but we've had to deal with your shit for 9 months, mate. And we've got you tied to the rest of the time.
Well, the thing is, men don't get pregnant, do they? So a man's not carrying a baby.
He's not.
For 9 months.
Yeah.
With swollen breasts.
Okay.
A man doesn't have all the changes in his hormones affecting his mood.
Yeah.
Making him perhaps sort of tired or...
No, you just got a female going on at you all the time.
Not if you're at work.
Why did you get this in me? So it's alright while you're giving her a right dick in, but when she gets pregnant and, you know, the result of that dick in is a child, then she's crying and shouting at you.
Yeah, but again, that's very much due to bodily hormones, isn't it?
For shooting the club up. I love that phrase.
Oh.
I apologise.
Choice phrase, mate.
But yeah, we took quite a slight detour there. But I think that links to what...
My point is, diversity, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what is diversity? Is it just skin colour? Is that what we should be going for? Is that what's in a company's interest? Is sort of whether someone's black or white, or if they're male or female?
What happens if, put it this way, you have a white person who is not that great at their job. You have a black person who is twice as qualified as them, but because they're black, they're not getting the job.
But
that could be the case. I'm not saying.
Have you got any evidence that that's the case? That
but that's what the point. That's where these individuals who have issues with this are coming from, I feel.
And you also have to remember as well that there's probably an element of nepotism sort of in the tech industry. People know each other from their sort of universities and whatnot.
Yeah, they're going to hire them.
So, you know, if you've got a lot of slightly nerdy middle class kids starting companies, they're probably going to get in a few of their mates from, you know, MIT or Harvard or Oxbridge, wherever.
Yeah. Fair. That's a good point.
I don't know.
One point that they did make, the individuals that are upset by this, is that, you know, you've got, you know, the whole black people Twitter.
Yeah.
And you've got the hashtag Black Lives Matter. But yeah, there's no black people who are working for Twitter.
But they're nothing to do with Twitter. Twitter just provides the platform.
Yeah.
And then people can do these movements or groups or whatever. That's
one good point there, because it's like, if you had, like, I'm going to go back to the whole, you're walking down the street and, like, you know, you've got to have a quota of black people. they might not even know what they're doing. So if you went out and got like 100 black people to come work in there, you know, you'd be fucked off if Twitter went down, like, and you couldn't use Twitter because of this hiring 5% or whatever, because those 5% of people don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Well, I mean, I don't know Twitter or the people that run Twitter. I doubt that their sort of racial makeup of the workforce is inspired by racism.
Yeah.
I think they probably just hire people who happen to have tech degrees. Where is Twitter based? Presumably in America
somewhere. Yeah.
where there's, it happens to be a majority white country still.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And, as we said, white people,
Mm-hmm.
often from a better socioeconomic status, there are more.
This is an interesting question that well, basically I was looking on this whole Effie Brown thing and diversity, and do you think that black business owners should take an active role in this? Because one comment that I found on the whole Twitter is from someone called Mrs. Carter Show. I'm not going to say her actual @ because then I don't want people sending mad hate words. So because Jay-Z bailed out protesters in Baltimore, he can be excused for having an all-white Tidal staff.
Tidal, though, talking specifically about Tidal, that's based in Norway, isn't it, the company? He bought an existing company with existing staff and infrastructure based in Norway.
He should fire them all.
Which, I've not been to Norway, but my understanding is there's very few black people there. They are very, very white. This is a white country. So, what's he going to do? Go in there to an existing company,
fire them
all the people who've created everything and know all the system and whatever.
Yeah.
And then just, move the whole place to...
No, just send the black people over there.
Just import black people to Norway.
Yeah. Blacken up the company.
It's just not good business sense, is it?
No, it
really.
doesn't.
I mean, maybe he could have bought a service that was being developed in the US or Africa or wherever.
Yeah.
Somewhere where there might be more.
Generally, people just need to stop crying about these sort of things, unless there was an actual active discrimination against someone.
Well, yeah.
But when someone's actually having a conversation, just leave it alone. Don't find issue with that.
At the end of the day, whoever was saying that meritocracy is some sort of Aryan supremacy thing, that's bullshit. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure people probably do use it as a cover to, maybe enact a slightly racist hiring policy in small businesses or whatever. But at the end of the day, the principle of meritocracy is good. That the people who are best suited for a job get a job. Yeah.
No, I agree with that totally. And it builds competition in my eyes, because, you're not getting that job because you're not qualified there. It inspires you. It should inspire you to become better. And then, in general, that drives the whole field that you're going into,
And like I said, if people have, social opportunities, like economic opportunities, education opportunities, and social mobility, then, that's what's going to balance out the playing field, not just trying to create quotas.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, I think we've probably covered
diversity,
race-related news for this week.
Yeah.
Something I found quite amusing. Would you use a sex robot, mate?
I don't think I would. No.
Because in a couple
I
of
think
years,
it's going to be quite expensive to hire a robot. It might be cheaper to just, buy a girl a couple of drinks and...
Well, because a company called True Companion, in 2017 they're planning to release a sex robot called Roxy. It will have, from what I gathered, 3 working orifices for the gentleman's pleasure. But
what are those orifices?
The usual ones, where one might put a penis.
Okay, cool. Where are they?
Not just for it's the mouth, the vagina, and the anus, if you need to know.
Thank you.
But they're apparently the goal isn't just sex. Also, the majority of the time, the company reckons people will be socialising, interacting with them, talking to them. I find that a little bit creepy, but whatever. Each their own.
Yeah.
Price is predicted to be about $7,000, which is about £4,500 for your sex robot.
I'm speechless.
Apparently, another feature can have orgasms. That got me thinking, are you going to be, how realistic is this a working vagina, essentially? I mean, are we gonna have to sort of top up on sort of loop, buy some sort of gel you load into some sort of pouch near its vagina, and
so then it releases it?
Well, not even that, but just so it gets wet. You know, I don't know. But apparently you can pay more for all sorts of custom options.
Like what?
They didn't go into details or...
Oh shit, I want to know one of them, man. I might get one of these.
I imagine customizing sort of like
the vagina,
voice, the hair, the eyes, skin colour.
I was going to say that. Is it going to come in a generic, you know, colour?
Diversity in sex robots.
Way.
But no, the thing that sort of caught my eye with this is there's a number of articles popped up. I think first one I saw might have been on the Telegraph actually, which I thought was quite an odd place to find it. I'd expect it from maybe the Guardian.
Yeah.
But no, there's now a campaign against sex robots.
Why?
Well, this researcher, Dr. Kathleen Richardson,
Is she a really strong Christian?
No, she's coming in from it.
Okay.
From a feminist and an ethical point of view. Her official title, well, the title she was given in the article was robot ethicist. So that's sort of important. She's from De Montfort University up in Leicester.
Okay.
And yeah, she's basically done research.
Mhm.
She's written a proposal.
How did she do this research? Did she get a sex doll and just jump on it for a long time?
I mean, you can, if people are interested, then go to the website. If you just search "campaign against sex robots,"
Okay.
it's got the sort of the research paper on there.
Mhm.
Basically, yeah, campaigning against sex robots. Comparing their group to, you may have heard about the campaign against killer robots.
No.
People campaigning against, for example, people building the Terminator, sort of sentient or AI killing robots. That's a serious concern, you know.
That whole artificial intelligence thing.
Yeah, we don't want sort of robots for war.
Yeah.
Cold, heartless robots.
The problem with that, I
people.
thought, with that artificial intelligence, this is a bit of a segue from what you're talking about, is that these individuals that are making all these technological advances with this stuff, they keep redefining what it is to be artificially intelligent.
Do they? I don't know, I've not read much about it.
It's basically, I've just listened to a couple of radio shows and they were saying like the definition that was like 30 years ago, we've reached that point, but then we've changed to what artificial intelligence would be. Like eventually, if you believe in all these things, like, you know, we actually have to have some point where we do not pass. So the Terminator doesn't happen. Well, what happens in the Terminator film doesn't happen.
Well, I think people who are against the killer robots aren't necessarily worried that Terminator's strictly going to come true.
Okay.
But
scared the planet's going to die because of the robots.
Sending robots in to sort of kill people or whatever. Or,
yeah.
You know, there are concerns.
Sex
robots.
Yeah.
I think slightly less concerning personally than sort of killing machines.
Yeah.
Basically, the argument is that the premise is we need an ethical approach to the development of robots that doesn't recreate social injustices.
Where's the social injustice?
Well, because she compares it to prostitution.
I thought she was going to go for rape because the robot can't technically say yes.
Yeah, but I mean, I could see people arguing that. I mean, a robot isn't a living thing, so I mean, it's like saying you raped your couch or you raped a heated grapefruit. You know, it's
okay. Fair point.
Those aren't things you're raping. They're just things you're essentially humping.
Fair point.
And the same will be with a sex robot. I mean, it's not a person as long as there's no AI. Like, it's not intelligent.
Yeah.
You know, self-aware in any way.
Okay.
It's just a fucking machine.
So the feminist thing, prostitution.
Yeah, well, she has a fairly negative view of prostitution, which is fair enough. It's not necessarily a pleasant career for women to get into.
Some prostitutes like being
But
prostitutes.
yeah, no.
She needs to stop that. That's woman on woman hate. Don't envy how someone's trying to make their money,
But
unless they're being forced
the
by
big
a pimp.
argument is that it objectifies women. That use of prostitutes objectifies women because you're paying for a service.
Yeah.
But then when you go for, say, to a coffee shop, you're not necessarily looking to interact with the barrister
No.
as a person.
No, you're not.
It's just someone you're giving money to make coffee.
Mhm.
I mean, if a machine could make brilliant coffee,
Mhm.
then you would use a machine.
One argument I'd have against what she said there is, think about when you're dating someone,
Right?
and a woman
Uh-huh.
or a man, depending what you want.
Whoever you're dating.
So like, you buy them stuff and shit.
Uh-huh.
It's a bit like prostitution, isn't it? Because, you know, you're paying for their services, you're whining and dining them, you know, and you're shagging them. This is essentially what you're doing with the sex toy.
There's supposed to be an emotional connection, ideally, in a relationship. Whereas a prostitute is
Some
just
people are
here's-
fickle, and they're only with you and giving you sex because you're paying them and buying shit. So in terms of that sort of form of relationship, that's what I meant by it. Like, if you're having an actual relationship where you actually care for the person, then suppose it's actually a genuine
bond.
thing. Yeah, but what I'm talking about, those scuzzy chicks out there,
Or guys.
or those ratchet guys or ratchet chicks,
Gold diggers.
gold diggers, they ain't got no morals. But yeah, that's what I'm coming from. So if I was to meet this person, I'd say, then don't you think like me dating and whining and dining is the same thing as me buying a sex doll? I just don't have to talk to the person.
Well, the thing is, I mean, I'd like to think that most people that use a sex toy,
Mhm.
I mean, because surely is a dildo not a sex robot, a vibrator? I mean, it's an artificial penis. It's not got, you know, the rest of the man attached to it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, what's the difference?
Is that not
objectify men?
Yeah.
Objectifies them to the point where it reduces them just to their sex organ.
Mhm. And then you've got that whole just like the issue with like size and stuff, because then, you know, you're objectifying the size of a man's penis.
Yeah, I suppose.
You know, you could be making men feel inadequate about the size of their
Objectification
penises.
can go both ways, although it is predominantly men who use, for example, prostitutes.
Yeah. Fair point.
But I don't see it as objectifying someone as using any other service.
Well, then I suppose they're saying that, from her viewpoint, she might be saying that the whole, you know, identity of a woman is associated to her three orifices.
Three offices.
Orifices. Have I said that? Have I pronounced that wrong?
No.
What I mean is her vagina, her butt, and her mouth.
Yep.
That's all that matters.
On the sex doll.
No, in terms of just women in general. I'm not saying I don't. Well, yeah. That might be the viewpoint she's saying, like objectifying, because that's essentially what the toy's got, like a mouth, an asshole, and a vagina.
Well,
are we objectifying those things? And yeah, like a woman's mouth is
at the end
good
of the day,
for things.
is it her place to say that someone shouldn't be allowed a sexy robot?
No.
Or a blow-up doll? And if you're talking about replicating sort of so-called social injustices, I mean, is using robots for sort of any purpose, like to take sort of the position of labour roles, is that unethical? Is that unethical to have a robot in a position where it just all it does is work? I mean, that's what this sex robot is. It's just
a worker.
You know, it just has a function. That function mean making people come. Men or women, because there'll undoubtedly be male sex bots.
A Rory.
A Rory.
Yeah. That's a male's
like
name.
Roxy. Yeah.
Come on, Ollie.
It's slow on the pick up there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just think it's a bit silly. I
Mhm.
mean, would you have sex with a
robot?
The robot? No, you said.
I don't think I will. No. I don't think.
Well, I mean, I've not got sort of like a fleshlight or anything. I
Yeah.
find that kind of weird, sort of like
Just shagging a vagina.
using a fake fanny in a can.
Yeah.
Basically, it would just be a bit weird.
If I had to have a choice of sex toys,
The full robot.
I'd probably have the full robot. Because I don't really see the point of me just having a tube and.
Oh, it
Doing
doesn't
that?
feel like your hand, I guess.
Yeah. Is this like fully functional? Like, will the robot jump up and down on you, or
Well, I presume.
do you have to
the
lie?
more- The sort of the better ones will be able to handle a variety of positions.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm on a sex robot.
Well, I read on an article from, I hate to admit it, The Sun.
Okay.
Apparently, reporting on a Sky News poll,
Yeah.
15% of British men would agree to
Having a sex robot.
using the sex robot.
Mhm.
Only 2% of women. But then that's weird because way more than 2% of women, I reckon,
Yeah.
have vibrators.
Yeah.
So they're already using sex robots.
Yeah. So they lied.
And in fact, I think a woman having a wanking aid is far more common than a man having a wanking aid.
Yeah.
A lot more acceptable for a woman to have a fake cock
That's
than
true.
it is for a man to have a rubber pussy.
Rubber pussy. I just don't get her whole argument. To be fair, this is like, is she a professor or something? Because if she's
she's a doctor at De Montfort University in robot ethics.
how was that a degree?
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily a degree they offer, it's just the field she
Chooses to be
studies in. I
into.
assume she's got some sort of philosophy degree.
She's one of these feminists that I say needs to sit down and have a deep, hard look within herself
Well, not herself,
and think.
but in the
No.
greater, sort of, the wider world.
Yeah.
I think men using a sex aid is probably not the biggest.
But the thing is, not even. What about the females that like other females?
Well, yeah.
Are they objectifying a woman's? Well, I suppose they are actually, but it's not just men who are going to be using these tools.
Well, no, and I imagine there'll be sort of a market for women and gay men as well.
Yeah.
I don't know, mate. I think it's a load of bollocks. The funniest thing I took from it is she mentioned there's an upcoming conference.
Yeah.
It's the second conference of love and sex with robots being held this year in Malaysia.
How
And I find it humorous that there's an entire
conference? Wow.
conference, but what particularly amused me is listed on the things they'll be taking into consideration and discussing:
Yeah.
robotic emotions, humanoid robots, and the thing that really amused me particularly, teledildonics. I don't know what that means. I'm guessing sort of getting communication involved into the
There's that thing.
simulation of the old fanny or anus.
There's an app that I've heard about that you can actually control your iPhone from somewhere else, and you can your partner's iPhone, and they obviously insert it into the nether
Well,
regions.
there's these things you can get, these
and
like
can-
love eggs that you can control with a remote control
Yeah.
or like your phone. And
That's
you
awesome.
control how they're vibrating in the
Yeah,
your lady or male friend, depending on your type.
that's fucking sweet.
It is.
That's epic. Look how far technology's going, man.
What a time to be alive. What a time to
Love
be
it.
alive. Anyway, I think that's enough for this week.
Yeah,
Sick of talking to you now.
fair.
So we've been shooting the shit.
Yeah, get out of my house.
I'm Ollie.
I'm Rich. Sorry, that was really harsh.